welcome to Network. My name is Phumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Today I am in Howick and on a stretch of road that is known for the Mandela Marathon. It also leads to the Mandela Capture site. So that's actually up the road from me. Remember to continue sanitizing, wear this face mask, keep social distancing. We need to curb the spread of COVID-19. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you if you think there's enough competition in the e-commerce space. This as the Competition Commission has said that it's looking into this space. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We look at cloning in the social media space. We find out about the challenges that some are facing when they're looking for funding for their startups. And in our conversation, we chat about WhatsApp's privacy policy. Now, sending typed letters to friends and family was a luxury that not everybody had. But now we do have cell phones where we can type instant messages and create social media accounts to talk to the world. But there are bad people who sometimes steal our photographs on those social media accounts and create other social media accounts where they pose as us. This could be detrimental to our character. Here's producer Unkemetse Kilebalegosi.
Recently, popular rapper Big Zulu posted this image on Instagram. He says that someone is impersonating him in a different account and sending direct messages to other users on Instagram. SABC News presenter and actress Pule Molibati is facing a similar problem. She says they stole some of her photographs on her account and posted them in a separate account with her first name. And the new account added a link to ask users to subscribe to gain access to more revealing and possibly pornographic photos, which Pulen says they don't exist.
When something like this happens to you, you feel like someone is robbing you of who you are. They are taking away from what you've worked so hard to build. I've created a career around myself.
Pulen speaks of reputational damage as many will start thinking that she sells raunchy content online too.
Follow the account itself. There's nothing on it, but they promise people that if you click on a certain link, they'll give them something that they cannot share on the fake account. I don't want this to come back and have an effect on me because I've got nothing to do with the account.
Upon realization of the existence of this account, Puleng and some of her followers reported the fake account to Instagram and were unsuccessful. They said the response was that it does not infringe on Instagram's community guidelines. When we reached out to Facebook, which owns Instagram, for comment, we waited a couple of days for a promised response on email and eventually didn't get one before going on air.
They should have blocked the account long time ago if you ask me, because a couple of us reported it and blocked the account itself. So I'm just disappointed at Instagram that they got back to me and telling me that it does not infringe the community. In what way?
There are others that we spoke to who says that they chatted on social media to people who were impersonating others in the past.
I got a request from somebody, an unknown person, and that person, I thought it was a girl because my details work on Facebook. Walk up a show, you should know this one is a girl. And come back with cards, and then the chat and all amount yabona. Chat, and then at the end, I've realized it was no fake.
Lately, it's an ongoing practice, which is common nowadays, where people somehow use other or steal, or manipulate other people's accounts for their own personal use.
Some say such impersonations are cybercrime.
So the damage caused by identity theft in the long run, it will have severe impact on individuals. Sometimes it could last long-lasting, it could be lifelong. So it is important that we must be careful and people should always protect their identities, keep their confidential information. If you are online, make sure you've got secure platforms, you've got strong passwords on your emails or social media.
Puleng is still hoping that the fake account will be taken down, as those running it possibly continue to share link asking people to pay for content that they will not find when they get access.
A lot of businesses are now becoming digital in order to speak to the times, but there are startup companies that are fully in the digital space. But a lot of them often complain about a lack of funding. Here's producer Sandile Hlangani telling us about the businesses that are struggling to find funding.
You probably dream of being a Mark Zuckerberg who founded Facebook as a university student and was a billionaire by age 23. Maybe you want to be the richest person in the world, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. You probably have been on the entrepreneurship journey here in Africa and end up on potholes and brick walls because funding challenges are a reality for many tech startups on the continent.
The biggest challenge is if I build a particular product or technology, which I know is a good idea, how do I position that product in order to derive strategic value for my end customers? And understanding the customer or the potential target strategy and the enablement of how I can actually deploy my product and then enable that organization to grow.
While some in South Africa give up, there are those who forge ahead in a bid to make an impact in the continent's ICT sector. Let's Thrift, a Kenyan hiking startup, says their biggest challenge was to take their product to the market.
You can be very good in terms of developing products, but it's one thing to create a product, it's another thing to successfully put it in the marketplace.
Some women in tech say gender gap and diversity was still the biggest barrier to achieving success in the sector.
I want to say that we're past, misogyny and sexism and mansplaining, for lack of a better way of putting it. But in most situations, I found myself where I'd explain myself, re-explain myself, then you get your male counterparts who'd say the exact same thing, and they're more heard and have a better seat at the table, or their voice is perhaps louder or more appreciated than yours, even though you are saying the exact same thing.
Tech analysts say to address the inability of startups to get funding, corporate companies and banks across the continent need to work with founders.
Banking system in Africa are not showing good positive signs. They've really not been helping the entrepreneurs or the startup when it comes, and they're very expensive when it comes to loan payment.
There are local and international investors which are now developing resources to help. Hot Prize Foundation is a Zambian-based investment fund that takes hands-on approach to fund startups.
This program is very vital to the growth of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in that it provides startups with the right tools to grow and soar on the market.
Empire Foundation says they support the development of startups in South Africa by providing them with advisory and administrative support services.
We are committed to solving 10 socioeconomic challenges using smart technology. And we show them how to build a business from the basic principles of starting up, let's say, defining your business model, your marketing strategies, getting your finances in order, your product proposals, your legal documentation, all the basic requirements that you need to go into your business without having to have the hassle of sorting out the additional admin work.
While the funding challenges are slowly being mitigated, some in the startup community say Africa still has a very huge gap to fill in terms of infrastructure.
When you come to South Africa, we're looking at rural areas that are so remote that even the internet connection is non-existent. We have issues of food. So now, how do I compare someone who's in Africa and someone who's in the States?
There are several factors that might cause other countries like the US to become less competitive in the battle to attract new founders. Funding is borderless, making it easy for startups to access funds. US-based entrepreneur Stacey Ferreira got an investment fund from Sir Richard Branson when she was only 18.
That I was able to connect through Twitter to Richard Branson, who funded my first business when I was just 18 years old. And that all happened simply because I wasn't afraid to respond to a tweet that he had sent out to the universe. So use that technology, be it Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, to reach out to people that you want to learn from.
Some African founders say racism and other forms of discrimination are realities they have to deal with when searching for funding.
VCs will invest in they will splash a lot of money in African startups as long as the founders are not African.
Analysts say Africa also needs to look at various government policies and regulations that make entrepreneurial activities difficult.
Like poor policies lead to poor economic growth. Most entrepreneurs need collaboration and partnership and scaling. And the only way to do is to be able to travel from one country to another.
Despite these many challenges entrepreneurs face, analysts say Africa is still a perfect field for harvest by both local and international investors.
It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. After the break, we chat about the changes that have been made by WhatsApp. This clock is 300 years old. We found it here at Tabo's Antiques in Howick. This is how people used to keep time about 300 years ago. But things have evolved a lot in 300 years. Now people have smartwatches, and while some use them for the purposes that they are intended for, there are those who use them to flex, of course. Siyabonga Mbatha is a top-flight footballer. The Amazulu goalkeeper says he needs to keep fit even off the pitch. He says his smartwatch helps him track his progress.
It actually helps me to track where my steps for the day, my heartbeat, the distances I cover on a daily basis, and my sleeping patterns.
Siyabonga says he did not look for a fancy brand. He needed something that could do the job he needed.
It's just called a smartwatch. I bought it online. So what it does is it's more of a health watch than anything. You link it to your phone, so you're able to check your blood pressure, the oxygen blood in your body, and the number of steps you take, and you can actually set up your goals on the watch.
We find fitness trainer Ngobi Gunene battling a massive hill. He tells us that his smartwatch is great help.
I'm an active person. I would simply be tracking my calories, how many calories I burn, how many steps I achieve on a daily basis. So I always look forward on reaching a certain target. And also just my alarms. I can easily switch off my alarm without having to grab my phone. So if my alarm goes off on my phone, it also goes off on my watch.
Research and Markets says the smartwatch space is expected to grow 19.5% by 2026. Many say the COVID-19 pandemic has been a huge help in this space.
If you actually look at the gym ecosystem, the way that's been constrained, even events such as park runs, which were widely popular pre-pandemic, have now all stopped or been diminished in terms of the capacity. So the average person who's really looking for a way of exercising and tracking their exercise performance now has to rely on a digital technological solution.
Until recently, I used the Huawei Smartwatch 1. And it didn't really give me any problems, and I really loved it. But I stopped using it when I started having problems with a charger that was falling apart. I did look for it in many shops and I couldn't find it. But I've been told that I need to specifically go to a Huawei store and I might be lucky there. But what if I lived in a small town like Howick, where I am today, Vryheid, Mthatha, or perhaps the R? It would be a struggle. So I just swapped my Huawei watch for a Samsung Active Watch 2. Zamo Ngobo says he used his smartwatch to read messages and do other things, especially when busy. But 2 years after getting it, he can no longer scroll as the screen is permanently frozen.
2 years later, since I had this one, it's giving me problems. I can't even scroll, it freezes. So now I treat it as a normal watch to check time.
These are problems that happen with time when using any piece of technology. There are reports that say the next growth area in smartwatches will be on wearable tech for children. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Welcome back. Now, WhatsApp's new privacy policy kicked in on the 15th of May, and a number of countries around the world are wondering on what to do, and they're looking at whether it infringes on their laws. Now, the privacy policy says that WhatsApp can share your information with their other companies that are owned by Facebook. These are social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. In South Africa, there's a Protection of Personal Information Act that the government said is going to be looking into, and they said they are still consulting to see whether this WhatsApp new privacy policy doesn't infringe on that. It comes into effect on the 1st of July. Now, joining me to discuss this a little bit further is Anthony Ackerald. He is the chairperson of the Wireless Application Providers Association of South Africa, and that is WASPA. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us, Anthony. Perhaps if you can start by telling us on what this new WhatsApp privacy policy is all about. Is it really new, though?
Okay, so I think it's a bit of a subjective answer to that question. From my personal point of view, I'm not frightened of it. I like to be informed as to what information is being collected about me, what's being done with that information. So I took the time to go and read the privacy policies and try and make an informed decision. As a result of that, I'm not particularly concerned about them, but some people have a higher proclivity for privacy around their personal information, and they might be a little bit concerned. The reality is there's a lot of information that's being collected by WhatsApp and is being shared across different platforms, specifically with Facebook. To understand it, I think probably a little bit of background or context is necessary. For those of maybe for your viewers who don't know, WhatsApp was purchased by Facebook in 2014, I think for around $19 billion. Facebook is predominantly an advertising platform, first and foremost. It's a social media platform secondary to that. So they make up to 85% of their revenue off advertising. And obviously, the more data they have around their potential customers, okay, and the more information they have that they can profile them properly, the easier it is for them to make money. So their acquisition of WhatsApp in 2014 was sort of a no-brainer. They bought it because they knew it was going to be an opportunity for them to obtain a lot of information, which is what they've been doing. The policy updates, in fact, are not new. They've been collecting this information for the last 6 years anyway. The privacy policy updates are simply us being informed of it. They've been doing it anyway. So, for everybody to turn around now and say, oh, I'm terrified about this, all it actually means is that you weren't paying attention earlier. They were doing it previously. Now we're just a little bit more informed about it. So yeah, there's a lot of information that's being collected. It's not personal information in the sense that you and I might think. It's our phone number, which is definitely personal information in terms of what you and I might deem personal information. But there's a lot of metadata that's being collected as well. Now, metadata is sort of information that on its own is maybe not that useful, but when you combine it with other information, it becomes quite useful, and it starts painting a picture of me as a consumer, me as the WhatsApp user. It starts painting a picture of me. And all of that data together can paint a pretty accurate picture of who I am, what my tendencies are in terms of spending money, in terms of where I spend my time, in terms of what I'd like to do online, etc., etc. That metadata can be anything from the battery power on your phone, to which network you use, to which areas you travel in. So those sorts of things on their own. The battery power on my phone, it's not that relevant. I don't have a problem if anybody knows that my phone's either permanently on 5% left or permanently fully charged. That for me is not a concern. But when you start combining it with a whole bunch of other metadata, it starts painting a pretty good picture of who I am as a consumer. And that data is then being shared with Facebook, and Facebook are using it in turn to profile me properly, so that they can profile ads or target ads to me more efficiently. Now, for me, I quite like that. I know that Facebook is going to have ads on it. I would much rather those ads that are coming up are relevant to me and are something that actually interests me than having a whole bunch of irrelevant ads coming up that are just a pain for me. So from my personal perspective, I quite like the fact that I'm well profiled and properly targeted. But some people don't like that. I guess it's a personal preference issue.
Anthony, what is the Protection of Personal Information Act? That is POPI.
our constitution obviously guarantees us the right to privacy. That's a broad overarching right. So the POPI Act, which is the Protection of Personal Information Act, is the piece of law that has been drafted, or legislation that has been drafted to give effect to that constitutional right. So the POPI Act sets out the nuts and bolts of how we are guaranteed our rights to privacy in terms of the Constitution. It was drafted off the back of European legislation, which is called the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. So it's quite well aligned with the European Union's data protection legislation. And effectively, it says how private bodies and public bodies can collect information, personal information of you and I, what they can do with it, when it's legal to use it, when it's not legal to use it. And it sets out all those criteria for lawfully processing personal information. Now, personal information in itself is very wide. It includes everything from age, identity number, name, religion, and it goes, it's very broad.
All right, Anthony Ackrold, Chairperson of the Wireless Application Providers Association, thank you very much for being a part of our network. And with that, let's take a quick break. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Welcome back. I am still in Howick and it's the Midma Dam behind me. Here's what else took place in the technology space in the rest of the world.
China's first domestic comet theme park opened to the public in Hangzhou, capital city of East China's Zhejiang province. Named Fox Spirit Matchmaker, it is also the first theme park in China to integrate immersive performances with night tours. The night tour starts with a grand ceremony full of rituals and music, where scenes from stories about Tushan are projected on the city wall. Organizers say the Fox Spirit Matchmaker scenic area has attracted much attention since it began trials operations at the beginning of this year. AI car company Pony AI, backed by Toyota Motor Group, showcased its self-driving vehicle utilizing its new Pony Alpha X system this week. Pony AI has robotaxi services in Shanghai, Beijing, and in California, with a fleet of about 200 self-driving vehicles. Late last year, the startup raised $267 million. The company said its next-generation technology for robotaxis will be using lidars made by Lumina Technologies. Lidars are laser-based sensors that are a key component to many self-driving cars and help them detect the environment around the cars.
All right, now the Competition Commission has said that it's launching a probe into whether there is enough competition in the e-commerce space. Now, we're asking you if you think there is enough competition in that space. Now, 28% of you say yes. There's 47% of you, that's the overwhelming majority, who say no. And 25% of you say you haven't thought about it. All right, and that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Sanitize, wear that face mask, keep that social distancing. From me, Pumela Lezondi and the rest of the team right here in Howick, have a good one. Stay home and stay safe. Good night.